What I witnessed was an American contractor opening fire and shooting at an unarmed person, killing them. It's immoral, it's unethical, and it violates international humanitarian law and the Geneva Convention. It is against the law.
Taking center stage today is Anthony Aguilar, a retired U.S. Army Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel, Green Beret, and former security contractor at the highly criticized GHF, an organization backed by the U.S. and Israel. Aguilar says he resigned from his post at the GHF after witnessing shootings of Palestinians at Israeli-controlled aid sites in Gaza. He has since accused Israel of violating international law and human rights. He also says the U.S. is complicit in arming and supporting Israel as it wages war on Gaza. Anthony Aguilar, thank you for joining Center Stage.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
25-year military service. You retire and you join UG Solutions as a subcontractor.
Mm-hmm.
Your mission was to work for the GHF. When you agreed to become a subcontractor, how much did you know about what was happening in Gaza, and why did you take the job?
I knew very little of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. In fact, that foundation did not exist until February of this year. I was not familiar with either of the hiring companies, UG Solutions or GHF, but I was familiar with what was going on in Gaza, and that the dehumanization that we've all witnessed, the starvation, the hunger, the destruction, was real. That was unquestionable. What I could do about it and what part I had in that, I really didn't know. I was recruited by UG Solutions. They contacted me. And when I was approached with the opportunity for that employment, I felt that at the time, I felt that the United States was a good faith actor in this effort to feed starving people and provide relief to the human suffering in replace of the United Nations and UNRWA, under the premise that the United Nations had been compromised by Hamas and that the food was not being provided to people but was being taken. I believed that.
So you were kind of on a mercy mission to do good.
I spent 25 years of my life in service to wanting to help people and do good. And I felt that I had skills and experience that UG Solutions was looking for to operate in a very complex, dynamic environment, and that few people could do it, and that I could. And I wanted to be a part of alleviating the human suffering and feeding people that were starving. We have an obligation to safeguard the population in war. War has rules. War has ethics. War has morals. Safeguarding civilians, especially children, is a moral obligation, and I felt that I wanted to be a part of that.
Well, the UN says that more than 800 Palestinians have been killed around these 4 aid sites that you saw in Gaza. What is happening on the ground?
Well, I'll first say that that number is much higher. That number of civilians, unarmed combatants, women and children, and the elderly, and people seeking food that have been killed, not dead, have been killed in and around these distribution sites surpasses multiple thousands. I know that.
How are they getting killed?
What really concerned me, and I guess what really disgusted me, is that the design of the distribution sites to force non-combatants and civilians seeking food through offensive combat zones to seek aid in an area that is dangerous, that inherently puts them in danger, was by design. The design of displacing and drawing Palestinians to food with no other option but to starve or make that journey to then be shot at was by design.
Israel says that this is a conflict zone and that's a way to explain away the shootings. Did you see a way for these aid sites to operate outside of, quote, conflict zones so that people could safely get food?
Israel's rhetoric and excuse that all of Gaza is a war zone and therefore there's no way to prevent or mitigate that is a lie. It is an absolute lie. There are areas within Gaza where combat operations are not being conducted, that sites can be established, that the population is not put in danger. There's an organization that did this very well. That organization is called the United Nations, UNRWA. 400 distribution sites throughout Gaza, community-based distribution sites providing meals, medical assessments, water, food in the places where it was needed. That's a great model. The model of establishing these distribution sites far away from anyone that is actually the population in need, to then forcing them to displace to get it, is avoidable. And it's evil. And Israel knows what they're doing, and the excuse to say that, well, everything is a combat zone is not true.
One of the other issues that's cropped up is that Israel is saying that Hamas is hoarding humanitarian aid. Is this true? And if it's not, is there an organized effort to ensure that the Palestinians aren't getting enough food?
The premise that Hamas is taking and hoarding is a continuation of the rhetoric that Hamas is responsible for everything. That's not true. The United Nations, UNRWA, the United States, USAID, and other Western organizations, unbiased, that have looked into this, have all come to the conclusion that the premise that Hamas was hoarding and taking and not providing to the population is unfounded, not proven. Israel, using that rhetoric, they control the entire environment within Gaza. They control the information that goes in and comes out. So they can control the narrative and they can lie, and they do. Can distribution be done in a way that is safe and secure? Absolutely. Israel has already established corridors throughout Gaza for movement, where distribution sites can be established from these corridors to provide security for the aid, but also providing it to the population in the areas where there's need. The design to not do that is intentional. It is an intentional genocide. It is a man-made famine. It is man-made human dehumanization and destruction at a level that we have not seen in modern times. It is by design.
Did you witness anyone being shot? Specifically, did you witness Palestinians being shot at or killed?
Every day.
Can you describe one such incident?
There was an incident on the 29th of May on distribution site number 4. I'll share 2 incidents with you because I think they're both important. This instance on site number 4, which is no longer functioning. Distribution site 4 was in central Gaza near the Netzarim corridor. It is now a base for Israeli forces conducting operations in Gaza City. At that distribution site, I witnessed this. It's on video. It's not something that I heard about or that someone told me about and it was talk around the cooler. I saw it. A UG Solutions contractor opened fire into a departing crowd of unarmed combatants, civilians seeking food, who had food from the site and were departing. They were walking back south to Berish. Berish is the city that butts right up against site number 4 near the Netzarim corridor. And as these individuals were walking back, the IDF had opened fire from the coaxial machine gun of the Merkava tank that was stationed near our site. These sites were all built right next to Israeli combat positions, intentionally. This contractor opened fire with his assault rifle, firing an entire magazine of ammunition into the crowd, at the crowd. He then celebrates and cheers with, "Woohoo!" An additional contractor who is on the ground standing next to me responds with, "I think you got one, man," or "Man, I think you got one," referring to an unarmed Palestinian man who dropped to the ground and didn't move. The individual that was shooting then responded back with, "Hell yeah, boy." What I witnessed was an American contractor opening fire and shooting at an unarmed person, killing them, to which Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, UG Solutions, explained it away as, well, he wasn't shooting at them, he was shooting near them, and he was cheering on the IDF. He wasn't cheering on his actions, all of which, any description or justification which is depravity. It's immoral, it's unethical, and it violates international humanitarian law and the Geneva Convention. It is against the law.
And what's the second incident?
On the 28th of May, the day prior, at distribution site number 3, which is in the south. Sites 1, 2, and 3 were in the south of the Marag corridor in what was once Rafah, which now does not exist. At this site, the Palestinians had been moving through the site to receive aid. As was typical at the end of the large crowd were children, women, the disabled, the most vulnerable of the population that need food that got nothing. This young boy named Amir came to me and another contractor. We were both standing away from the crowd, and he approached us with food that he had picked up from the ground. He didn't have a box of food. He didn't have a meal. He didn't have anyone with him. He'd picked up scraps from the ground. And this young boy had no shoes. And this young boy had no parents. His father had been killed in an airstrike. He had been separated from his mother when their home was destroyed, and he was living in Khan Yunis camp. That is a refugee camp that was a refugee camp. It is no longer there. Israel has displaced everyone from these camps. He was taken in by a family that was not his own, but then that took him in, and he and his adoptive uncle were walking to the site to get food on this day, on this morning, on the 28th of May. He was separated from his uncle when the Israelis opened fire on the crowd at the release point for them to come to the site to get food. He was there alone, picking up scraps of food, a young child with no home and no family, no shoes. God knows when's the last time he ate a meal. And he came up, he approached us, and he was thankful. He kissed the hand of the contractor standing next to me. He spoke to me, spoke to both of us, kissed my hand, and thanked us. And the look in his face was a look of vulnerability and need, a look of, what do I do? But he was thankful that someone cared. And as this young boy left the site with the other Palestinians, particularly to site number 3, and this has been captured in a lot of video, and the IDF have even admitted to shooting at the civilians at this particular point. Site number 3's exit connects to the Marag corridor, which is a forced route that the Palestinians must take to move back to the encampments. At this intersection is stationed an Israeli Markava tank. This tank, with its coaxial machine gun, fires into the intersection to crowd control, to keep the Palestinians moving to the west and not near their location. They use lethal ammunition and firing from machine guns to control the crowd. They've admitted to this. On this particular day, as the crowd was leaving, the UG Solutions contractors started to use stun grenades and tear gas to move the crowd off the site, which invokes panic. And this group of Palestinians was running away, and they were gunned down by this machine gun. Amongst them was Amir. And he, like many others, are buried in that ground around these sites, because after every distribution that we did, almost as a standard operating procedure on behalf of the IDF, they would then bulldoze the area. What they claimed was resurfacing the routes, because they were sand. So when you have thousands of people that are walking through the sand, it makes it very difficult to walk. So the IDF said that we're just resurfacing the routes. They were burying bodies.
So was Amir's death a tipping point for you? Is this the moment you go to UG Solutions and GHF and ask what's happening and how can we do better?
So actually the day before that, on the 27th, on our first day of distribution, when distribution site 1 in southern Rafah was overrun with 34,000 Palestinians starving, and we provided not enough food, not nearly enough food, and we provided no water, and we still provide no water. I brought it to the attention of the leadership that day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And what I thought to be incompetence and inexperience, and that my presence there with my experience and my competence could lend to fixing this, What the breaking point for me was that it became clear to me that everything that had happened up until that point was by design. The failure of security, the failure to control, the luring of unarmed combatants to get food who are starving, who are then shot at, who are then further dehumanized by having to pick up scraps of food from the ground or beg for food. Or another part of it that I became aware of was that at these distribution sites in the south, that once Palestinians cross the Morag corridor, sites 1, 2, and 3 were all south of the Morag corridor, they don't get to go home. So if they came from their home in Khan Yunis, and let's say the able-bodied male of the family who could make the journey, who could come back with food, well, his family will never see him again. So then what happens is the family is then concerned about what happened, so they go looking for him, and then they never go home. It is a plan. It is deliberate. It is by design. It is evil.
You spent 41 days in Gaza before you resigned. There is a little bit of back and forth. GHF and UG Solutions says that you were fired for inappropriate behavior. You threatened the company, you forged documents, and presented misleading videos to promote a false narrative.
If you listen to the narrative and the rhetoric of the spokespersons from GHF and SRS and UGS, they are just puppets of the IDF and the Israeli government. They peddle the same words, the same propaganda. They use all the same phrases. They're cowards. The truth is, in getting there into Gaza, not only did I not get fired for poor performance, they promoted me twice. In the short time that I was there, twice they promoted me.
They promoted you before or after you started raising concerns with the leadership?
Both. I entered Israel on the 19th of May. On the 21st of May, I took initiative to provide a briefing to the contractors because the leadership provided us no information on where we were going, where the sites were, how we would do distribution.
Was there ever any guidance on the rules of engagement?
No. No rules of engagement, no standard operating procedures, no provided guidance or training on the use of non-lethal munitions that, when used improper, are lethal.
You are a veteran of Iraq, Afghanistan. You've been to Syria. How unusual is that you would go into a war and not have some type of guidance and clear-cut rules of engagement?
Not only is it unusual, it's unheard of, and it's unlawful. It violates international humanitarian law. It violates the protocols of the Geneva Convention. It violates law of armed conflict or law of armed warfare.
As I listen to you talk, the term moral injury keeps surfacing in my mind. This idea that you, after experiencing a traumatic event, are so distressed because your morals and your values have been violated. What kind of moral injury did you experience in Gaza?
I was lied to. Not only have I been lied to, was lied to and have been lied to by our government, but by the GHF and UG Solutions, because they knew, they have known, that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation project was simply a tool to further implement the plan of genocide. They know that. They have known that. The contract that was written between COGAT, the Coordinating Office for the Governance of the Territories of Gaza, that contract written between COGAT and Safe Reach Solutions stipulates the food and the water, no water, limited food. It's a plan. And our government knew it, and our government knows it. And when I got there, me, as all the other contractors, were told that, well, we're here to distribute food, we're here to alleviate the suffering, we're here to deliver aid. And that's not what we're doing. They lied to us. And the way that they buy off people's morality or buy off people's ethics is with money. They just increase your pay. For me, when I brought up issues in the very beginning, this is wrong. Oh, we'll promote you and pay you more. Contractors there on the ground are making $1,600 a day. A day.
Your sense of outrage is palpable. How has this experience impacted you?
I see the U.S. reputation and presence in the world in a much different way now.
How different?
Our lawmakers, our elected officials are compromised. They are complicit. They are corrupt. They are bought off by a foreign lobbying group, AIPAC, to make decisions not for the benefit of the United States, but for Israel. Our congressmen, senators, and representatives who receive AIPAC money are bought off.
You are a rarity. You are a lieutenant colonel, a Green Beret, a Bronze Star and Purple Heart recipient. It's not every day. You also add on whistleblower. What is motivating you to do this, especially because I'm sure it comes at a personal cost to you?
The cost is incomparable to what I'm speaking out for. I'm not speaking out because of I disagree with a policy, or I think that, that we should do things a different way. I returned from Gaza and I wanted to speak to members of Congress because I wanted them to know. And every member of Congress that I spoke to on both sides of the aisle, their response wasn't, "Oh my God." Their response was, "We know." And for some it was, "We know, and we're trying to do something about it." And for some, the response was, "We know, and we're fine with it." We have lawmakers in our government who are evil. My wife also served a career in the Army, career Army officer. She and I share a lot of the same moral, ethical viewpoints of the world. Our worldview is aligned. When I came home and I told her that I was going to talk to Congress, I called her that night after I talked to Senator Van Hollen and Senator Sanders and Senator Welch because they wanted to do TV interviews. And I said, "I don't know if I want to go into the media." And she said, "You need to, because the Palestinians don't have a voice. Everyone that has spoken out says that they're lying. People are dying. You've seen it. You know it. You have to speak out." And I said, "Okay, I think I'll do that, but I'm going to do it anonymously." And my wife said, "If you speak on this anonymously, you're a coward." And I didn't marry a coward. I'm blessed that I have the support of my family, my parents, my wife, my close friends. I'm blessed that I have that support, and I will not stop.
Have you been threatened, doxxed? Have you and your family faced any repercussions as a result of you refusing to remain silent about what you saw in Gaza?
I've had threats against my life. I've had threats against my safety. I have been doxxed. I have been called horrendous things. I have been targeted by smear campaign. But all of that doesn't bother me. I don't care. One day, I will stand before my Maker. In whatever form that may be, I'll have to face myself and know that I had a voice. Did I stay silent? I have a mind. Did I think for myself, or did I just follow what other people told me? I have morals. Did I ignore my morals, or did I follow what I know is right? And when I have to face that, what's my answer going to be? That, "Oh, I was afraid to because of what someone on Twitter might think of me, or because of what someone on Instagram might say about me." I don't care. I really don't.
You were recently arrested at a Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing for disrupting the hearing. At the hearing, you said that the senators had an obligation to the Constitution and that Americans need to realize they're paying for a genocide. That is a bold move. What is your game plan going forward to keep talking? How are you hoping to affect change?
I will knock on every door in the Capitol, and those that want to listen.
And you've already been doing that.
I have been doing it.
Yes, you've
almost multiple days out of almost every week since I've been home, knocking on doors, talking to people. But what I will say to every lawmaker on the Hill, it's not enough.
What would you say to Americans who share your outrage, share your desire for an end to the war, but are too afraid to come forward because they see people have lost jobs, their reputations have been ruined, they've been called anti-Semitic? What would you say to those people?
That is how evil wins. all that is required for evil to triumph is for the good to do nothing. That is how evil wins. Through intimidation, through lies, through scaring people. That works when we aren't united. But when the people are united, that doesn't work. That works because AIPAC influences the decisions of our country. It's time to get rid of that. It is time that if you are an American and you speak up against your government providing aid to a foreign government that's committing a genocide in our name, and you speak up against that and you lose your job, shame on us.
Anthony Aguilar, thank you for joining Center Stage.
Thank you. It's been an honor.